What's going on? Welcome to the green room. Today I am live with a good friend of mine who manages pretty much all of our visual content. Is literally the mastermind behind like half the things I do. It's Nick Maciarz. Nick, what's going on, dude?
What's up, man? How you doing?
We're
Thanks for
doing
having me on.
great. I am just realizing that your screen share isn't set up properly, but that's okay because we'll get that done in 2 seconds. Life's good. Life is, we're doing well. You were actually just telling me about some of the things that you've been up to past couple of days outside of this debate, because we're not going to talk about that.
Yes, exactly. Oh
Um,
no, your face went away.
yeah. That's fine. I'm going to turn that off just so they can get some better
Full
lighting or whatever.
coverage.
All right, so we're going live on Instagram too.
Yes.
And anyways, so yeah, we're here today talking to Nick about all your visual content, all the things you do. And dude, you have been such a lifesaver for me in so many ways. I think the first thing I want to start with is the story of how we met, but then the second thing I want to talk about is the USB story from the Quantum show, because that is like literally the definition of our relationship.
That
All right,
was great.
don't forget, I'm live on the Instagram. Just join me in the room,
There.
and then, but yeah,
How do I
there we go. Here we go.
request? Let me in.
All right, you're in. Send request. We're waiting. Okay. So I'm gonna start first. I'm gonna start with my stories first. All right, we're all good. So, the way we met, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the Please and Thank You show that you were shooting for Odyssey at the time when he was opening.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
was that was what, 20
Yeah.
like 17?
I'm gonna trust you on that one because I'm
Early
so bad with
2018?
dates.
I mean,
I want to say yeah, because I just graduated I don't even know 2017. Yeah,
yeah. I
um,
I didn't know I didn't know anyone. Oh, you know what? I no, it actually just came to me. I know exactly when it was. It was March of 2018. It was March of
okay.
2018.
Yeah.
I just remembered because I remember that was when I was chatting with Please and Thank You. That's how I got there, because I offered to write him I offered to write him a write up, and then Odyssey was opening for him, and you were videotaping for him, and I was like, I'm gonna save a photographer I'm gonna save this guy in case I ever need a photographer, just like out of nowhere for no reason, because networking.
Yep.
And then like, because I could have easily stopped using you by now. I could have easily found a different photographer.
Easily moved on.
You are like
Um,
the best find of my brand ever.
I appreciate that, man. Wait, so going back to the Lunar Lounge thing, so did we even talk that night, or did you just like note that I was doing video?
I think I just noted that you were doing video. I think it was
Yeah.
like maybe we had a 5-minute conversation.
Maybe. I don't know, but like, yeah, I mean that's kind of like how I started doing these is because literally Steph and I met met in college, went to
Yeah,
the same college,
really.
and yeah, and I was actually his TA for a sound design class because we had a sound design class in filmmaking.
I didn't know this at all.
Yeah. And he took the class and I was doing a because I was a cinema major and I was TAing for the class after I took it that first year.
No way. And
And then he was
he
like
was doing
the
video.
no, well no I think no I'm gonna get I don't even know what he studied. But I think he was just taking it because it was like something else to do. I think because you know you have to do like electives and stuff.
Yeah,
So he was doing it, and I think it was just because it's set up like to be a sound design class. I mean, really, it's a funny class because the rest of it is just filmmaking. You're literally like learning how to edit films, how to record films on both digital and film.
yeah.
But this class was literally like how to use Ableton, which was weird for
For the video production stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Because they wanted to teach people how to do sound design for their films.
I have had I listened back to I watched the okay, first off, I shouldn't say I watched singularly one time. I've probably rewatched the Odd Mod recap probably 200 times. That's besides the point.
It's
I
got 211 views. You
yeah.
watched 200 times.
In my in one of the recent times I watched it, I noticed in how much my ear has developed in a year. I noticed you did some fancy work in the sound design there. You took the recording of him playing Intrinsic Live, cut out
Uh-huh.
some of the lows, stretched it out to him actually dropping it in the video, huh?
Yeah. So that was one thing. Again, I mean, if we're sticking on the college thing, so where I went to college, they had a film program, but they didn't have an extensive film program. This is not NYU. This is not
Sure.
Emerson. This is not whatever. So I found myself getting kind of like discouraged, I guess, because I felt like I wasn't learning the proper tools to be, I wanted to be a cinematographer. And I think that's still one of my goals. But I wanted to just like shoot movies, either short films, feature films, commercials, the works, whatever.
Yeah.
And I just wasn't, I felt like I wasn't getting the tools that I needed, the skills that I needed to learn, um, or to be useful right out of college. So I ended up just kind of fully diving into music for some reason. I
Interesting.
literally was like, I would go to class and I was a terrible student. I barely went to class. But the rest of the time I was just diving into first I started on a cracked version of FL and
Nice.
then a
Classic.
friend yeah, the classic route. And then a friend gave me Logic because he was trying to be my roommate in college was trying to be a rapper. I
Wow.
think he still
So he
tries to do
chose
that.
Logic? I guess that's a rap for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
That and
So
FL Studio is like really big in the
is
rap.
the
It's
go-to
really big in the rap
for the
game.
beats. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he gave me that, and then I was like, for some reason, maybe because it was school. It might have been because of school, where everyone was like, "Do Ableton," and actually there was a club that was called Binghamton Production and Mixing (BPM),
Nice.
and I went to that like it was an additional class. I went to every meeting. It was a very small thing, whereas maybe like two other people in this club, and eventually the creators left, and I ended up being the I don't know, the head of the club for
Nice.
like 2 years. So that's like where I just like fully went into music, and that really piqued my interest and kind of drove me towards electronic music. I was into electronic music before then, but this really like set home where I was like, oh, some, I could actually make the music I was hearing.
That's so sick.
And that was very exciting to me. And then I was like, okay, but I still love filmmaking. And I started realizing that, hey, you can shoot shows. Like people do that. People go to shows to
That's how it
film them.
happened?
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Really? Wow.
Because again, like I didn't think that was
I didn't even realize this was wow, okay. I didn't realize this is where the story was culminating. Okay, keep going.
because yeah, so it ties around eventually. But like so that's like kind of where it began because in my mind, going through high school, I was like, okay, you could either be like like cinematographer for like a feature is like you're the OG, like you are so cool. And
Yeah.
then like then many tiers below that, you're either like a wedding videographer, you don't even call yourself a cinematographer, or
Sure.
like an events videographer, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and so in my mind, I was like, I do not want to do that. Like that sounds terrible. Like especially events because being in the film program, the film and theater program were pretty tied together. So uh, I would shoot theater shows, and that's literally like you set up a camera in the back of the room and sit there for the entirety of the production.
Yeah.
And for me, like, the productions were great. Actually, Binghamton has a really good theater production, but like for me, that was just, I was like, events suck. Like, I do not want to do events.
Yeah. Hey Nick, real quick. People are saying that they can't hear you. Do you have the Bluetooth headphones to your phone?
I have it on my headphones. Can I change that?
I mean, I don't know why it's not. I don't know why
Maybe
that
if I
mic wouldn't.
hold it, is this better?
Here, do it real quick.
I'll just hold it right underneath me.
Say something again.
Hello, hello. Check, check.
One more time.
One more time. Check, check.
Yeah, I
Mic
can
check.
barely hear you.
All right. Oh, wait, do I have to have it on my headphones or could I just turn off
You'll have a
the
little bit of feed. I mean,
headphones?
you can turn off headphones. You'll just have a little bit of feedback. It's no big deal. Just keep it away from the mic that we're using for this, and then you're good.
Okay. So I turn off the headphones and I could hear you on here, but I'm lowering the volume. How's that, guys? Is that better?
Yeah, I think it is
Why am I hearing it?
because there's
Because I
a
turned
little
the
bit of an
volume off.
echo.
Oh, I can't turn the volume off on this
That's what
thing.
I'm saying. That's what I'm
Oh,
saying. That's what I'm saying.
got him. All
But
right.
it's
So maybe
fine.
if I'm
Just
like
keep it.
way
Yeah,
back
just keep
here,
it away from that mic, and you're good. Um.
I have a gate set up on this mic, so it shouldn't come through.
Okay, that's good then. If you have a gate, then you're totally fine.
Yeah.
Um.
Okay.
Nice. Wow. Good work, team. Right as
Yeah,
all
we
right.
did
Thank
it.
you everyone for sticking with us. All right. So really quickly, this is Lunar Lounge presents. We have the green room, so we're interviewing people across the music industry. Nick is my videographer. Nick does all my visual content. You can check out what he does at Lunar Lounge presents on Instagram. Where pretty much all of his content is him. And he's been telling us a little bit about his journey from, you know, what right where the point we're at now is how you started actually video not I don't want to say videotaping because that downplays the skill, but you know what I mean, doing shows.
Well, it's funny because I mean, the whole videographer versus cinematographer, it's like if that's what you want to do, that's totally fine. But
Yeah.
in my mind, like as a high school and maybe even college student, I was like, dude, videographer, no way. Like cinematographer sounds so much cooler.
So is
But
that what I should start calling you, my cinematographer instead of my
yeah,
videographer? No, I'm dead serious. So that's what you want me to call you, I will.
it would boost my ego.
All right, great.
Um, so yeah, so I realized then once I got into like more of the EDM like production that I realized that people actually go to the shows and shoot the shows. And I don't know, I just like I started following like the artists that I liked. And I'm like, how do you like who creates this content, right? And I feel like honestly, it's only been in the past like it's been much farther back than this, but I started realizing it like especially in the past like less than 10 years, right? Especially with like Ausla. That was a big inspiration to me. Uh Joss Davis shot a lot of their stuff for them. And it was just impressive to me because you see obviously like there's brands behind every label. But in my mind, I saw Ausla as like the top. Like they were consistently putting out like great content, like thought-provoking content or visually interesting content on the regular,
Cracks me up to hear you
And
say that so much.
yeah. So that was like I heavily followed what Joss Davis was doing for a while. And then I
They're
started
so
looking
close
into
too. Like Skrillex and Jaws are so close.
yeah,
Joss.
Jaws, I don't know.
I mean, his
But
content is sick. All he does, I mean, he does everything.
yeah. And that was an inspiration to me because I'm like cuz you see, your general shows, Ultra, Coachella, whatever, festivals that like, they hire a team. It's usually a production company. Odds are, especially the creative director, might be into the music, but sometimes maybe not because again, it's like you're an agency. You don't just cater to one specific thing. You cater to whoever hires you. Um, and I don't know, it just kind of seemed like copy paste, boring stuff. So I wasn't very interested in it. Again, until like I started noticing these like single creators that kind of had a vision for a label or had a vision for a project and like really saw that from the beginning to the end. And that to me was very interesting. So it's like, I mean, talk about, like the millennial mindset. You kind of have to do like everything, It's like there's no more like you're no longer like a tiny
Yeah.
piece, like a puzzle piece. Like you're half the puzzle or the whole puzzle.
How
Uh,
how good then? Like, I don't even think I realized that this is where your head was at. Was our timing just perfect?
for sure. I mean, again, I've always kind of been, um, you know, kind of like a whatever happens happens kind of person. So I just like to get the best that I can at whatever I'm interested in. So again, to me, it was like, oh, like shooting events would be cool. So I started looking around at Binghamton. And again, unfortunately, I think I was like a little bit too late in realizing that because I think it was like my senior year that I started really focusing on shooting events. But like that Odyssey show, for example, was, or that Please and Thank You show where Odyssey opened up for, ended up, I think that was like my first or second large show. And I mean large as in like it's not in some random city, random college town, you know, it's like
Yeah.
in New York City, opening for a major artist, uh, and a crowd that's more than like 20 people, you know?
Yeah. It was a fun show.
So
It was a fun show.
no, it was awesome. And like, dude, I was so nervous too. I mean, I feel like I get nervous, but then it's so weird. Maybe you get this when DJing, but like once you're actually like feeling it and in the groove, you're like, dude, this is so much fun.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
this,
yeah,
like it
yeah,
just
yeah.
flows. The night ends before
Absolutely.
you realize it.
100%, dude. 100%. That actually, well, first off, and then that was March of 2018.
Mhm.
I met you that night. Um, kept your contact, and then by August of 2018, I was throwing our first Lunar Lounge show. So it was not something that I initially planned on doing when I met you, but I shortly after finalized the idea, needed a photographer.
Mhm.
I got you on, got you with us. I want to talk about all that, but I have got to, especially because you just brought up how nerve-wracking you get. I've got to bring up this story from Quantum. So
Yeah.
if anyone's still streaming with us right now, like listen up because this is a fantastic story. So this is December of 2019. So first off, like I'm about to head into what I think is going to be the biggest year of my DJ career. I'm going to have so many live shows, it's unreal. So, and this was my first one at Quantum. So I'm thinking, here's the start of a long future. Nope. But so I get to the show. We get there an hour ahead of time because I get so anxious day of. It's actually really funny because like 50% of the time we've ever hung out, you see me at like my worst. Not really my worst, but you know what I mean? Just like I'm not, normal on those days.
Yeah.
Um,
Freaking out a little bit.
I'm freaking out pretty constantly.
Yeah.
But so we get there an hour early to test the USBs because I don't want to freak out. I freak out. The USBs don't work. And lots of reasons why I needed all those songs in particular, but I was just not in a good spot, and
Mhm.
I couldn't get the files to download. I couldn't get anything to work. And I was about 45 minutes from either saying, "Hey, someone else give me their USB and I'll just wing it," or like I can't play or something like that. And you literally said, "Hey, I don't know anything about this, but I read once on the internet that if you change the bit rate to 16 instead of 32, like it'll work." Like just pulled it out of your ass. And I was like, "Holy shit." I did, not really knowing what I was doing, change the bit rate to 32 earlier today. I did do that. Holy shit. I just rebounced my songs to 20 to 16 bit. I don't need to explain the science behind that. The story is I quickly fixed it.
Yeah.
And literally Nick saved the day. Like definitively saved my set, saved that night of content, saved everything. Cuz that was a great night for content too.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's
Yeah,
that's how I remember Nick, is the guy that just delivers all the time.
Appreciate it. Yeah, no, I mean that's what it's all about. You know, you just have your friends that have your back. I've like because I've helped friends out with like the CDJs and stuff like that a little
Yeah.
bit. So I was like, it just came up randomly on Reddit one day, and I was like, oh, good to know.
It's so funny.
Because like usually when I export stuff, it's 32 bits. So I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah, I
Might
have
not work.
no idea. Listen, I want to make sure we talk a little bit about the stuff that you and I have been doing, because it is the first time out of all of these interviews I've done that is really, we can talk about working together and collaborating pretty directly.
Mhm.
I mean, obviously I could sit here and talk about what the Lunar Lounge brand is, but you're the one that's creating the visual content for us. And not only the Lunar Lounge, Azure as well. And I think you understand the relationship that I've wanted Azur's visual content to have with Lunar Lounges, and how they are similar but different.
Right.
How do you take visions that I have and can't really articulate and create them so expertly? Like, what skill set do you have that is able to make that happen? Is it like your understanding of people communicating, what they mean? Is it emotional? Is it very technical? What's like the biggest skill?
I think understanding is probably the biggest. I work at an agency for my day job, and that's like the biggest thing is taking like what a creative director says or wants and trying to visualize that, and it also helps to like repeat it back at them, being like, okay, just to make sure I got it. Or sometimes like they'll have just the inkling of an idea, and like to them it makes sense, or like they'll be like, yeah, it's super simple, but then like coming down from experience, like you understand that it's not, so you kind of have to like start asking questions, start like getting a better understanding of what they want exactly. And there's two ways, I think, because that would be one way, and then the second way would be to understand they're what they want or what they're trying to get. It's more so like them on like trying to get an idea across or a feeling or a vibe. And that's kind of where the creativity comes in.
Yeah.
Because there's several ways usually to get that same idea or that vibe.
Yep.
But ultimately, like it's up to the creativity of whoever you're hiring or whoever you're partnering with.
Yeah.
To realize that vision in their way, in their style, because everyone has relatively the same tools. You can go to whatever company is that makes your tools that you can make content with, and everyone can buy those tools, but it's amazing that everyone comes out with a different style, even if they don't really know much about it. I've seen people who are completely unexperienced but still have some kind of style to it, or like a way of going about things or telling a story that is inherently theirs, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So I think it's two things. It's like, you want to realize the person's vision to how they envision it, but also it's your job to put your creativity into it and your spin on it, to possibly make it something that they didn't expect. And it could be better, it could be worse, but that's like why you hire someone. You don't want to hire someone who's a robot and just pumps out content exactly as you see it.
There's a human exchange happening there. There's a human exchange. You're collaborating on an idea.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
It's always, I feel like the best content is always a collaboration. I mean, go like, for example, again, like Ausla. I'm sure there's like visions from the creative team there, but at the same time, like their content, like if something isn't shot by Josh Davis, it's not, or it's like it has a different style or something like that. It's like you see a piece of content and you're like, that's that artist.
Yeah.
And it's important to both, in my mind, it's important to collaborate with people where your creative visions build off of each other. For example, like, when you came to me with the Lunar Lounge idea, and you just like, whether it was the visualizer or video content or whatever, just the way you were explaining it, or like the flyers that you showed me, or the logos and stuff that you showed me, excuse me, that like sparked an interest in me and got me thinking of like, okay, this is an awesome baseline. Like, where can we take it from here?
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of the gist of it. It's like, it's more of collaboration, than just kind of like robotically taking, okay, you want this idea? Here's this idea.
Yeah. Something that I really enjoyed about working with you was the vision that Lunar Lounge is now is not the same one that it was when it started, but yet you still you still picked up on that. You picked up on that shift and adjusted it and kept the integrity of it all. So, I mean, the shift is mainly when I personally made the shift from future bass to house music. That was the shift in Lunar Lounge, because that's what Lunar Lounge wanted to be. The name Lunar Lounge, all of that, it wanted to be house music, but I kind of forced it to be a little bit of future bass because it was my thing. And then once I let that go and it settled into what it was supposed to be, and it just all fits so nicely. Michelle's logo was instrumental in driving the change. That logo is amazing. And you saw that logo change, and you heard the music change that I was playing, and you shifted the art. And it was really cool that I didn't really even need to tell you to do that. You just kind of knew from the conversations that we were having where it was shifting.
And I mean, to be honest, like a lot of it is just feeling. As I'm sure you understand, like as an artist, there's definitely, like, from the outside public, there's a pressure to like kind of fit in to a certain piece that they want you to fit into.
Yeah.
And it can be challenging sometimes to be like, okay, but like I'm seeing it another way. Or I'm feeling it. Or, it's like that's the hardest thing to explain, is a feeling.
Yep.
And I don't even pretend to like say I know what I'm doing 100% of the time. It's more of just like I the way I work is a lot of experimentation.
Yeah.
So like, it just so happens that like with are we specifically talking about like the after movies or like the visualizer?
I mean, all of it. So, I mean, the first content you started with me was the after movies, and that I mean, first off, I was about to make an overarching statement of that will always be my first piece of content that I focus on, and then I remember that we're in a pandemic and literally nothing is going to be ever the same, so I'm going to take that back. But those after videos were always what I wanted to be the focal point of my brand, because the whole FOMO thing. And
right.
You took that and you moved it, and then I started asking for visuals, and you married it pretty well. And honestly, what I think you do so well is you take that beautiful logo that Michelle made and you bring it to life in all those animations where it bounces, and it's just so cool. It's just so great.
I appreciate that. It's a great logo. It was a lot of fun to mess with. No, but honestly, like the way that so let's I guess focus on the visualizer for a second. Like that was kind of just I like pulling inspiration from whatever I was feeling at the time. I was very into learning 3D, and I had just taken I dove into this guy's course, Ezra Cohen. He's a Tor Visuals creator.
Okay, yeah. I recognize
and I started just like messing with his content and understanding like what his process is, because before then I really haven't made any Tor visuals. I've mostly focused on video and editing video. So this was a cool experiment to just be like, okay, I have these tools. What can we do with them? And I kind of know a little bit of 3D, and it's like I kind of just like went if I was like, oh well, I honestly can't even explain my thought process on it, because again, it was so much just experimentation. I think I literally just like pulled the logo into my 3D program, and I was like, oh, what if like one of the L's was, or like what if the L's were glass, or like a glass texture? And I'm like, cool, but there is a difference in the logo, like slightly with the opacity, right? So like one L is different shade slightly than the other. So I'm like, okay, well, what if one L was like solid and almost like a tile or a quartz type texture? And it was just like a bunch of that.
Yeah.
Just a bunch of experimenting and like seeing how it looks. It was really cool. And then it just, and I'm like, well, okay. So then you kind of dive into a little bit of like your experience and knowledge. I'm like, okay, well, with visualizers, if these are going to be like the sole visualizers, they should probably loop in a pretty nice way. So then I'm like, okay, give it some motion, make sure it loops. And then just, again, like experimenting with the tools that you have until you kind of like it. So cool. I suppose.
I mean, that's what it is. That's what artistry boils down to. I can sit here and tell you, about music production. I mean, I got into video production. I've never ever been like formally trained on video production. Maybe like an intro, like here's how you open up your visual station, but all I've done is I've just messed with that stuff growing up, and that's how I did all the Quarren Cream visuals. That's how I did all my all the content I've put out basically since the pandemic.
Hmm.
But I agree
You've
with
been
you.
you've been working with all that? That
Just
was all year?
just the Quarren Cream, the visual loop, like the hour-long visual thing. Yeah, that was all
Yeah.
me.
Nice. There you go.
I used your visuals, and uh I used Manoa's visuals. Manoa's the
Oh yeah.
man. Manoa's the
Yeah.
man. Um but yeah, I have actually enjoyed this conversation more than, well, I shouldn't say I've enjoyed any more than others, but I've
This one's
enjoyed
the
this. This
best.
one's the best. I've enjoyed this one because it's far more artist based, far more talking about just kind of the creative mind.
Hmm.
Um, I guess what would be good to kind of wrap up on is, I mean, we talked a lot about the creative process and what you do to move things forward, but we are in a weird time for creativity, both good and bad. What are you using this time for, if anything, in your creative expression? That's a broad question. How are you staying creative in this time, and what is your like plan?
Yeah. Kind of looping it back to when we first started talking. I've used this time to really dive back into music a lot. Um, it's kind of like if I were to say like what I see myself doing in uh you know 5 years, 5, 10 years, I'm like I'd love to be able to put out almost be like a content creator in my own right and being able to just live off of that, right?
Sure.
And one thing I'm always been very interested in is again like audio and visual. Um, so I'm thinking like it would be sick. I've always been musical. Not yeah, I don't know. Since I was little, I used to
Sure.
play the guitar. It's actually back there.
Nice.
Um, and so and again, getting into music production in college, I've always been very interested in that, and I don't want to let that go. It's still very much a hobby, but I find it very fun to put visuals to music
Yeah.
and see like because and you see this all the time with like meme music, right? Like the audio can change the meaning of the visual so much, and vice versa. And that has always interested me. So now
That's an
I'm
interesting
working
way of
on
putting it. I like that.
yeah. Yeah, I mean like it's 50-50. Like you go to a movie and like you're like, oh, the cinematography, like it's so like that's the running joke in filmmaking is like the visuals get all the credit, almost like how the actors to on a surface level, the actors or the director gets all the credit, and then you dive a little deeper, and then all the visuals get all the credit, and then all the way at the bottom is the audio.
Uh,
It's like that's 50% of your picture. That's 50% of your mood. What would films be without music?
silent films, baby.
Yeah. Um,
I'm not about it.
but so that's something that's always been very interesting to me, and so I've been using this time to relearn guitar, get back into the DAW, start making music again. I actually I had a project back in college and a little afterwards. And I stopped making music for like 2, 3 years when I tried going into event filmmaking or I started my day job at the agency.
Nice.
Um, so now I'm just using this time. It's honestly been fantastic.
Hell
I've
yeah,
been
dude.
I've been loving working from home, and as soon as I'm done with work, it's back into music.
Dude,
Um,
we're living the
so
same life. We're living the same
exactly.
life.
So now I'm just kind of taking that time. Actually, Odyssey is giving me one-on-one lessons.
Really?
we're we're taking yeah. That's my big thing is like I love sound design. I love just making crazy sounds and using synthesizers, but the arrangement and the musical part is where I lack.
Yeah. It's
So
tough. It's
he's been
tough.
helping me out with that. But other than that, yeah, it's like just getting that like in terms of like staying creative or like or being inspired still. Uh I just fill my feed with like artists that I love. Whether that's like huge artists like Josh Davis or like Leah Sems, I think that's her name, the one who shoots for Dead Mouse and Rez and everyone. Or just like local artists. Like I'm still friends with you remember Erin from, actually I think it was Quantum, right? The visual girl.
The one that ran the visuals.
Yeah, yeah.
She was amazing.
Yeah. So I follow her on like Instagram. Like she's been doing some sick 3D stuff. Like that's something I'd love to get into as well, but that's like so far down the line. But
Interesting.
she's
I
been
didn't
doing
know that.
something
Can you send me her
incredible.
profile? I want to check that out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. If you guys, whoever's watching this or checking it, Erin, I always butcher her name. What? It's like WAJFUS or something like that. Um, and then just like local photographers and stuff. And I think that's the important thing. We're kind of talking about the social dilemma, that film that came out, and like
Yeah.
how like social media can be challenging. But at the same time, I personally feel that like if you just get rid of all the BS and like fill your feed with like local artists, with big artists that you love, it's honestly a pleasure to scroll through.
That's
And you feel so inspired afterwards.
I got to do that. Damn.
So.
All right, man. Well, hey, I really enjoyed the conversation. Well, let's go be creative. I'm hoping, man, we can work together soon. Cause, God, I hope so. We'll make it happen.
For sure. Yes. Back to shit. I was telling you, I just went through the Lunar Lounge thing, and I was like, you're posting the show photos and stuff. I'm like, I miss live events so much.
Dude, I can't talk about it anymore. I'll break.
Sorry to bring it up.
No, you're good. You're good. All right, man. Good talking to you.
It's a pleasure.